In this video, we're going to take a look at Baofeng's new DMR digital radio, the DM-32UV. In part 2 to this video, we'll take a look at the radio CPS or customer programming software you'll need to program the radio, especially its DMR functions. I'll link part 2 on the end card to this video and in the description below. Appearance-wise, the DM32 is a dead ringer for the UV32 that was recently released. Check out the end card and description for links to my review of that radio too. While quite similar, they differ in that the DM32 is a digital mode radio. In this case, it's DMR. For folks new to digital modes, there are several used in ham radio. The three most popular are DMR, that started life as a business-related product, Yaesu System Fusion or C4FM, and Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio, or D-Star. ICOM and Kenwood make D-Star radios. As you might expect, these three technologies aren't interchangeable, and the radios designed for each system don't work with one another in their digital modes. DMR is quite popular as the technology behind the system is widely available. This means there are several manufacturers who make DMR radios with the associated variety in features and price points. The Baofeng DM-32 is one of the lower price models in the DMR universe while having a very competitive set of features. These radios are available on AliExpress, Banggood, and Amazon. Currently, the Amazon offering comes with a couple of different accessories, and as with all Amazon purchases, those products are easily returnable. I bought mine from Banggood. As we jump into the review, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to click the notification bell to ensure that you know when we release new videos. There are also join and thanks buttons below the video where you can help support the channel. Now, on with the review. Let's start our radio tour with a couple of key features most people find important. First, the radio has a 2-inch screen with lots of choices in terms of font colors. You can set them for your personal preferences or to best fit the brightness level of your environment. Next, the radio is advertised as a 10-watt radio. As you'll see in the power test, the power output came in at just about 8 watts. It also includes all the usual receive bands, including VHF, UHF, FM broadcast channels, NOAA weather channels with alerts, and AM reception in the airband. Like most DMR radios, the DM-32UV can also function as a typical FM analog radio in both the 2-meter and 70-centimeter bands. In terms of DMR-specific features, the radio can handle 4,000 channels in up to 250 zones and 50,000 DMR contacts. That's considerably fewer contacts than some of the more high-priced radios, but it's more than enough for your favorite talk groups and friends on DMR. The radio supports talker alias, so anyone who has that enabled will show up on your screen with the information they've chosen to share. This last thing I'll mention in this abbreviated list is the radio's GPS and APRS capability. The radio can display your GPS position, but unlike the UV32 and other GPS-enabled HTs, the DM32 doesn't share the GPS position information with others using the same scheme used by those other FM HTs. It does, however, have digital APRS system. Digital APRS can make position reports. I'm not a big APRS guy, and especially not digital APRS, so feel free to leave a comment below if you'd like to clarify that system. The radio also has an SMS or simple messaging system feature. Here's an expanded list of the features for those who want to know. Click the pause button to stop the video so you can read through the list. Now, let's take a look at what comes with the radio and do a power off tour. So here's the box that the DM32 comes in, and it's a pretty big box, but it's a pretty big radio. So let's take a look at what we find inside. Let's start with the user's manual, and this is a little different since it's a digital radio. And so you've got it in here, tells you what came with the kit, gives you a diagram with all the keys and what they do. And then what we see here is that you can program the side keys, which is not unusual, but because it's a digital radio, there are just a whole boatload of options that you can assign to these side keys, some of it with analog, some of it with digital, so you can make this customized to what it is that you want to do. The rest of the operation is pretty much the same. It tells you how to do the one key setup, testing the voltage, how the FM radio works, all that kind of stuff is all in here, as well as some advanced features. And these are very similar to what you would find in the UV32, the analog version of this radio. But it's really not a tutorial on how to program a DMR code plug. You're going to have to pick up that information somewhere else. So in terms of charging the radio, it comes with these components. I got this from Banggood. It's available now on Amazon, so this may be a little different with a package that was designed for the U.S. market, but it has the European-style plug with an adapter for the 120-volt USB-C on this side that plugs into the charge cradle, which is also USB-C. And then you can see here that the charging tabs in the cradle are in the front because that's where the tabs are for the radio. So that's the charging. And of course you can charge the radio directly with USB-C into the battery without using the desktop charger. And so in terms of the other accessories, it comes with a pouch instead of a belt clip, which is kind of handy. The radio fits in here. These fit over the top of the radio. And then there's a snap strap in the back to put it over your belt or a pack strap or whatever else you want it to connect it to. It's got the wired push-to-talk and earplug here to use the radio a little more quietly. Plug it into your ear, and then there's a push-to-talk and mic there. These are common in these kind of radios. And then there's a separate USB-C cable that you could use for charging. I haven't tested this to know whether it's data capable or just charging capable, but you could use this in your car and plug it directly into the battery, that kind of thing. So those are the accessories. Speaking of the battery, let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is the battery. It's kind of an L-shaped battery. The radio is going to sit here on this little shelf, and it's a DC 7.4 volt, 2500 milliamp hour, or an 18.5 watt hour battery here. You may have noticed in other reviews that I've done, they've started labeling batteries in watt hours, and that may be because the TSA has put limits on watt hour sizes that you can have on airplanes. So these are listed at watt hours at 7.4 volts. And so this is the battery, and you'll notice it in that it screws into the bottom of the radio. So let me put that on the bottom of the radio, and we'll do a quick overview of the radio itself. So here's the radio. You can see the bottom of the battery with the charging tabs there on the front. And then we'll just do a quick flip to the back. You can see that this is the battery. It's got the little indicator wrapped around the USB-C plug. So this whole thing lights up red or green depending on the charge status. And then the speaker is on the back of the radio, which is kind of interesting because the battery is larger and a lot of it has here. It gives it room for the speaker on the back. And so I've had this on, and you can hear it well, regardless of the volume setting that the radio is on. And so on the front of the radio, we've got the radio that's got a kind of a long, narrow aspect ratio. The screen has that same kind of aspect ratio. We've got the menu and back key here, and then up and down in P1 and P2. We've got the numbers here. The microphone is a little dot right there at the bottom of the number pad. And then we have ABC and the other letters of the alphabet listed here on the keypads. And plus we've got, like the lock key down here and so forth. If we rotate this to the side, we've got the press to talk button over here. We've got side key 1 and side key 2. As I mentioned, we were talking about the owner's manual. There are a lot of things that you can program into these. We've talked about the back of the radio already. And then on this side of the radio, we've got the K1 connector, which we can use for our accessories and for our programming cable. On the top of the radio, Then we've got a couple of things that are extra. We've got the antenna, which is the male side. You can see that the plug is there. The spike end on this side is on the radio. We've got a ratcheted knob here that we can turn through the channels, and we can make some choices in terms of our menus here. And then we've got the on-off switch and volume over here. And then right here, a little receive or transmit indicator LED on this. Now you notice the radio did not come with a lanyard, and there's no place to attach a lanyard here. It's kind of a big, and so you wouldn't probably want to use a lanyard on this kind of a radio anyway. The last thing we'll talk about here is the antenna, and the antenna is kind of a rubber ducky. It's got some flexibility here. It's got the female or socket side here. It's a dual band antenna that just screws into the antenna socket that we just looked at on the radio itself. So that's a quick overview of what's going to come with your DM32. Now let's do a power on tour and look at the buttons and menus. So here we've got the radio powered on. You can see that, the fonts are kind of small, but it's a very professional looking layout here. We can see that we've got here the little caret pointing to this. So this is the main one. We can go down here to, if we're in dual watch or dual display, move down to this particular one. And because this is a digital radio, on this side, instead of having a channel number in the red square like the UV32, this has got the type of signal or type of channel it is. And so in this case, it's a digital channel. The other alternative, of course, would be an analog channel. On the top, we've got the battery indicator. We see that this is low power, narrow band because it's digital. And then we've got an RSSI across the bottom, and we see that it is channel 2. So while the font is a little small, there's a lot of information packed into that. So here we've got the menu button, and the menu is different depending upon the type of channel you have. And so we'll go through this here real quick. We've got the talk groups if you're going to be setting up a digital channel, a DMR channel. And we can go down here, set up scan, zones, SMS, call log settings. This will record your calls. And we've got a roaming capability in the digital mode here. The GNSS is the GPS. We can set that up, turn it on, tell it where we are time zone wise, and select whether we use GPS or the Asian based or both for our GPS. It does some APRS. I haven't played with that very much, but it does have APRS capability, and that's mainly digital APRS because it's in this digital menu here. And so those are the menus, and so they're subdivided quite nicely, and they're pretty easy to figure out. Now up here, I've got my radio programmed on my side keys, and I'm going to use the lower side key to change between zones. And so here then I've got the zone that is my VHF zone. I've got my VHF repeaters here in the local area programmed into this one. Now I point that out to you because now I want to go back into menu, and you can see that the menu is different because this is an analog channel. And so I can still set up scanning. I can set up my zones. I've got my radio settings, which are the things that you're used to seeing, in terms of channel set, device info, DTMF. The radio settings are the big ones, whether it's voice, what the keys do, display functions, and then other functions. We'll take a quick peek at that. This is the timer, Vox, talk around, analog might gain, digital might gain, and all that stuff. This button over here is the back button. We can back out, and we can back all the way back into our zones. And so this button will change between the upper and lower register. We've got the little caret move down there, and then we press it again, we can move up there. Otherwise, it's a back button or a return button. And then a long press on the menu is going to move us into the DTMF, where we can make, press numbers like for an auto patch, that kind of thing. Now, on P1 and P2, if we go to P1 here, it gives us our GPS info. And even here in the house, the GPS receiver in this radio was able to pick up where I am, which is kind of cool. This does not share GPS information like the UV32 does, but it will tell you where you are. And then we can go back and get out of that. And then P2 gives us the FM radio channels, and we can add frequencies here, or we can just scan up and down through the channels with our FM. Again, the back will turn that off. And so that's kind of the overview of this set of controls here. Now, the other thing on the side, we've got a number of things we can put in the side key. So side key 1, a short press, will change my power. So now it's on low. You can see the L has moved. Now it's on medium, and now it's on high. A long press turns the little icon on up here. And frankly, I don't remember what I programmed that to be. But again, there's a whole lot of things that you can program onto that. And then on my lower button, my lower side key over here, check here, right here, it's small print right there, but I'm in my VHF zone. And so if I press this again, now I'm in UHF, and now I'm in my hotspot zone. And so that gives me hot zone up and zone down. A long press moves it down through the zones. And again, that's what I programmed it to do. And there are a bunch of things that you can program yours to do as well. Now, the radio does support talker alias, and so the downside here is that importing the users from the DMR database, there's only 50,000, and the current database is, 200,000 or 170,000. And so unless you're going to go through that and find your 50,000 best friends and load it into here, it's probably easier just not to bother with loading that master database in here, because it'll show the DMR number of the person coming in. If you've got a hotspot that you're using, it'll show their name regardless of whether you've got it in the radio or not. And then it will also then show their call sign and name, or however they've identified their radio, if they're using the talker alias feature of DMR. Talk groups are easy to enter as well, and so we'll talk about that when we look at the CPS. So again, the top is going to give us the opportunity to change channels, and you can see that the channels are changing as I rotate this, and then this changes the volume as you would expect. So that's a quick power on tour of the DM32. Earlier, I mentioned the radio's power output. Here's a clip of the various settings using my MFJ874 power meter. I'm going to set this at the 20 watt level, so we'll be reading the output on the second arc from the bottom. This is high power in the 2 meter range, high power 2 meters. So we've got it right at 8 watts of high power at 2 meters. Low power in 2 meters, low power. And we're right at about 2 watts. Medium power, 2 meters. And we're just under 5 watts, 4.9 or so. So that's the power output on 2 meters. Now let's go up to the 440 band, 70 centimeters. So here we are on high power at 44600, about 5.1. Low power, it's about 2.8. And medium power, about 4.1, 4.2. So that's the power output for the DM32. One of the things that frustrated me about this radio, in a good way, was the clean signal in the 2 meter band. With so many Baofeng radios having dirty 2 meter signals, it's nice to see that Baofeng knows how to produce a clean radio. Here's my test using a Tiny SA Ultra. So I've got the DM32 hooked up to my Tiny SA Ultra, and I've got the Ultra set up to measure harmonics, and the little blue line across the middle there is minus 16.02, which corresponds to 25 microwatts, which is one of the requirements for harmonics to be below. And we're going to be using medium power. I've got over here a 40 dB attenuator so as not to damage the Tiny SA. So on 146, the 2 meter band, let's see what the signal looks like. Letting this go through the cycle a couple of times to level out. It's scanning a very large range. Okay, so we've got the primary or harmonic number 1 at 146, up at 26.2. DM number 2 is minus 49 below, so that meets that requirement, and it's below the 16.02 line right here. So this represents a clean radio at 2 meters. So let's wrap up part 1 with some closing comments. The DM-32UV is a solid value for a DMR radio in this price range. You can find these from about $70 on AliExpress and Banggood to about $100 on Amazon with some extra accessories. It includes all the DMR functions you need to quickly get on the air, plus a bunch of features not normally found on radios in the sub-$100 market. Things like both NOAA weather channels and alarms are cool, and digital APRS with GPS info is also not always found on other offerings. Analog APRS would have been nice to include, but even some very expensive digital radios defer to digital APRS. It is what it is. The DM-32UV's large size and narrow aspect ratio are also interesting design features. While not as large as the Baofeng UV25 series of radios, the DM-32UV definitely fits the bill for those who want a larger HT. Things like the larger battery and rear-firing speaker give DM-32UV some unique characteristics that set it apart from other ham HTs. So is this the perfect DMR HT? Probably not, but at this price point, you could spend quite a bit more and not get quite a bit more for your money. This would be a good choice for someone getting into DMR or prepper who could make use of the large receive range, channel count, and digital communications, whether via a repeater, hotspot, or simplex. Please like and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel, and be sure to leave a comment if you think I missed something or add your experience with the DM32. Join me over here for part 2 of this review. Thanks for watching, and 73.